Hello, welcome. In this video, we are going to learn about list file operation of FTP connection. When we know that whenever we require to read a file from server, we have download file operation or read a file operation. But why we are using list file operation? So friend, list file operation is something it is going to return back the all file present over the server. It will return back only the file name present over the specific directory of FTP server, not file. Remember. So here the real time example will be that suppose in SFTP server we have multiple files and we have to consume all the files in OIC. So how we can consume? We know that read a file operation will read only a single file and we have to pass the file name, a specific file name. Download the file also do the same task. We have to provide the specific file name. But what will happen if we don't know about the file name? So here you can see we have employee data file and we are not aware about what is the actual name of this employee data file because this employee data file contain the date and time. So how we can read this data in FTP server from FTP to OIC? That's why we have list file operation. So what we will do? We will use list file operation. We will provide this directory and we will pass the file name pattern. So file name pattern can be employee percentage or employee star.csv, anything. File name can be employee data star.csv. It means that after employee data, star means whatever thing will be there, .csv, matlab .csv file. It will list down all this file and response of this FTP list file at any point, it will return back the name of this all the files. And based on that, we will iterate the loop and we will read each and every file one by one. So that kind of operation we can perform. So let's begin and see how we can work on that. So let me move to the integration part. So for that, we need to create one integration. So let me create one integration. So here you can see, for example, right now we all have the CSV file only. Let me create one text file. So if I will create one text file, something like that, new file. Let me give the name as employee.txt, employee1.txt, and let me provide the same value, whatever value we have for the remain file, and it will skip the reading of the file. Right. So suppose here we passed. So here you can see now we have five file over server and one file having the file format as .txt, and we want to read only CSV file. So how we can read all these files, CSV file, skip the text file, or we can only read the text file, skip the CSV file, everything we will learn in this video. So let's begin. So here I'm going to, in integration part, I am creating one integration. In the integration, I will give the name as XXFTP list file integration 01. We created integration, and what we will do, I will add a request and response payload here. So here I have already created request payload. So in the request payload, what we will do, instead of file name, I will provide the file name pattern. So file name, I will provide the file name pattern and the file name pattern, and then we have to use the pattern, something like that. Employee employee star.csv, something like that, so that all the file present our server starting with employee and ending with .csv will be read. So here you can see in the server we have file in that format, employee, whatever message is there, .csv. So all these 4 5 will be listed down in OIC. So how we can do this one? So let me copy this request payload. In integration, we have to add REST endpoint to configure the request payload. So I will connect REST here. I don't want to configure response payload this time. So let me give the name as start REST. Next. And here we will select post again. Let me add the response payload also. And what kind of response payload we will provide? Let me give the name as list file. Next. Here request payload. So I have already created a request payload. I will select JSON here. I will provide the request payload here. So instead of copy, I will just paste here file name and next. And in response payload, so let me create a response. So what kind of response we want to print? So in response payload, what I want to print is that in response payload, I just want to print the file count, total file count. I just want to print the total file count for that list only, right? So I will copy this response payload and in the response section, I will select JSON. I will provide payload here. Okay, next. So our endpoint is added so that we can configure request response payload. Now we have to list the file, right? So for listing the file, we need to use FTP endpoint. So I will select FTP connection here. In the FTP connection here, you can see we have to give the name as list file FTP. Next, here we have to select operation as list file as we are going to list the file only, not going to read the file, right? And here you can see input directory from where we have to list the file and the file name patterns. What is the file name pattern is there. So these two we are getting from the request payload only. So what we will do instead of providing here, we will provide in the mapping. But remember, here you can see it's mandatory. So what we will do, I will provide any dummy values like X or X. Any dummy value we will provide and the same value we will provide in the mapping so that this value will be override in the mapping. Maximum file 100, it means that suppose in server we have 200 files, so it will list only 100 file there. And maximum is 0, it means that the latest file, all the files present in our system we want to read. Here we have the list file recursively or ignore file permission. Suppose this file our server doesn't have permission, so list file cannot read, but if we will select here, so it will ignore the permission if we don't have the permission to get the file. Even that also it will list the file. So I just don't want to do any changes here, just go next and done. So here we are done with that. In mapping, this is the invoke list file FTP. Once you will go for mapping, we have to provide the file name pattern and the directory. So once we will expand here in the list where you can see file name pattern and directory. The file name pattern we are getting from the request payload. This is file name pattern and the file directory. So these two we have mapped easily. Now validate and go back. So here you can see we successfully added the list endpoint so that it will list down all the file present over system, and now it's time to read the file. So how we will read? So for what we need to do, we need to first iterate the loop here. So for iterating the loop, we have for each loop. So I will drag for each loop here, and where we will add the for each loop, we will add for each loop of this list file response. So you can see list file FTP. This is the response. Inside the response, once we will expand list response, what is going to return back, it's you can see it's returning back the position and the item count. Item count is something like total number of file they listed, and you can see file list is the list of files. So inside that we have file array element, and this file contain all the details. So what it contains, it contains the file directory, file name, last modification date. Here you can see we got the file name. Previously, while running the integration, we don't have the file name, we have file pattern, what kind of file we are going to read. And but in list file operation, it is going to return back the file name in array. So here suppose we have four file four files, so it will return back four file name in this array. File name, file directory, all this thing. And then this file name and this directory we will use in the while reading the file in the mapping. So now here I will drag this for loop, this file array air, and I will give the name as loop where for each list file for each loop where. And here I will give the name, this name to the loop. So this one done. So we are done with adding the loop to iterate the file, whatever file we receive from server. And now we have to read the file. For reading the file, we require a stage file operation. Sorry, before that, here we have only the list of file name. We don't have file. Here we have file name from server. Now we have to read the file. So for reading the file from server, again we need to use the FTP connection. So I will drag FTP connection here, FTP connection, and we have to read the file. So I will use read file operation. read a file FTP. Next, here we have to select read a file, and here you can see input directory and file name. So right now input directory and file name we are getting from here in this list file endpoint, and the same list file endpoint we added in the loop. So loop variable will having these two details. So I will map in the mapping only. Next, it asking for the file structure. So here you can see as we have this file, I have already created a copy of this file in the, you can see this is the same file, copy of this file in our local system. So let me open this file. So here you can see this is the actual file, whatever file we have placed over server. If you remember the same file we created in the previous integration while writing the file over server. So here this is a file. So I will use the same file as a sample file in integration. So here I will move select CSV. It's fine. Go next. And here we have to select the file sample. So I will move here, and you can see in the stage activity here, this is our file sample. So I will select file sample. You can see we have all the column name, DOB, domain, contact, address, created by the or creation date, everything. Now we have to just provide the record set name rec set, and next. So here with the help of this endpoint, we are successfully able to read the file. Now we have to provide the mapping to the file name and the directory. So in the mapping, once we will expand here, you can see file name and directory. These two file name and directory we are getting from loop variable. So this is loop variable. You can see list file for each loop. We will expand this loop variable. Directory we will be mapped with this directory. File name will be mapped with this file name. Validate. Go back. So now we successfully added the endpoint to list the file, added loop on the list file response, so that whatever file we will have, based on that file, it will iterate the loop, and each and every time it will get the file name, and that specific file name will be read from the SFTP server. And after reading the file, we can add the loop, or we can insert this data into the a database, or whatever operation we want to perform. So suppose I want to read the data of this content. So here in this response of this read file FTP, we will have the data of that file. But if we want to print the log message, we need to iterate the loop. So what I need to do, we need to add another loop, so that we can iterate the data of this stage file. So here you can see in the repeating element, I will select read file FTP, expand this read file FTP, and here we will have the record set. Inside that record set, we have record, and this is the record, and this is the record set array. It means that in the data file we have multiple records for this column. So I will drag this here, and here I will give the name for the I will give the name as for each read file, and here I will give the name as for each read file loop where. Now here I will click, so that loop will be added. So this loop is added. Now here we have warning because we don't have anything inside the loop. So I want to print the log of the file name. So I will just add the logger what we want to print. So what is the file content? If you will see, we have the name, dob, domain, contact, address. So I just want to print the name and the contact, right? So what we need to do in logger, we will select use concat function, concat, and here we will use name. And from where we will get the name? We will get the name from loop variable. So you can see we have two loop variable for each read file loop var, and you can see list file for each loop var. So I want to go for read file. So I will just expand here. In the record, you can see we have the name. I will drag the name here. After that, I want to print the suppose contact. So I will use contact, contact, and here again I will drag this contact. So now we are done with the mapping. Once I will click here, oh sorry, it's erased. So again I will go for concat name. Here we have to drag the name. Then after we have to print the contact. Contact. And here we have to drag the contact, and done. Now validate by clicking here. So you can see it will print message like that name, whatever name will be in the file, contact details. Just click outside. So here you can see we added successfully. Now we have to map the response. So in the response, we have to provide the total number of count. So we know that in response of list file, we have the count, item count. So here you can see in the list file, we have item count. So I will map this item count here. So validate, go back. You can see integration completed successfully. What we have done, we have added the FTP REST endpoint to configure the request and the response payload. In the request payload, we are getting the file directory and the file pattern. We file operation and map the file pattern and the file and directory. Now after that, we will get a list of file name and the total number of count of file. So from this endpoint response, even we can add the logic. If file count is 0, process this one, and file count is greater than 0, then only process the loop file for each record, and all that kind of things we can add as a validation. So let it be. So now after whatever response we return as a list of file, we added the loop for that list of file so that we can get one by one file name and the file directory. And then based on this loop you will have the file name and file directory. Then we added the read file operation of FTP so that whatever file name and file directory we get from the response of list file, we can read the file. Then after that, each and every file can have multiple records. So for getting the records, we added the for each loop for read file operation so that if the file having the 10 records, so this loop will iterate 10 times, and in the log message 10 times it will print the each and every records. And once everything will be done, it will be completed, and in last of the integration we map the total number of count as a response of this integration. So this is the basic integration. Now what we have to do, we have to add the business identifier to remove this error. So let me add the business identifier as a file patterns. Save. Integration is configured. Now we can activate this integration. So go back, activate this integration, and everything is fine. Now integration activated, you can see, and we have to run the integration. So once we will run the integration, we will move to the body part to provide the request response payload. So file directory, where is the file directory? So from where we will get the file directory. So I will make a copy of that, and here we will the pass file format. I want to provide the file format as employee.data. So here we have employee star.csv. So it will take employee star, it means anything, and .csv, it means the last ending with .csv. So yes, it's ending with .csv only. So now once I will submit, it will return back a response as a count of 4, and it will read the file. It will list the all of 4 file. It will download the file in the read mode, all these things. You can see we have file total file count 4, and you can see we have the log message. I will explain you the log message also. You can see we provide mapping. So invoke list file. While invoking the list file, we provided the file pattern. You can see the file name pattern employee.star.csv and the directory, and based on this file name pattern, it will return back the response, and in response it will return back all the for file name. You can see position, this is the position value, and the item count 4, it means we have total 4 file. And here you can see inside the file, this is the repeating element file, we have directory, this is the same directory we passed, and the file name, you can see this is the file name. Again size, and again here we have another file and endpoint. Again we have this directory, and thus this is the second file name. You can see this is 249, this is 559, this is 603.z.csv, and this 692.csv. So these all are the file we receive from the list from the FTP server. Now here you can see after that what we added for each loop for each and every file. So that's why we have 4 files. You can see the for each we have 4 iteration. And if we will open the iteration, you can see we have the log message for iteration. So it will contain the first file. You can see this is the first file name, the directory, and the same file name and directory we map while reading the file. So you can see invoke read FTP. Inside the invoke read FTP, we map the same directory. You can see this is the same file and the directory we map, and it will return back the data. So you can see whatever data it return back, whatever data we have in the file, it returning back. You can see record Ajay Kumar, DOB, software engineer, this one. Sanjay Kumar, DOB's technical consultant, all these details we are getting. And the same details we added in the loop. So here you can see, here in the first file we have 3 records only. You can see this is our file. And what is the file name? Let me check. The file name is 559z. You can see this is the 559z. Once I will open this file, you can see we have 3 record. Ajay, Sanjay, Virendra Sehwag. And if you will see the here, we have same. If you will see the data of this file, you can see the Ajay, Sanjay, Virendra Sehwag. There's three records. So if we have three records, that's why for each iterated three times, each and every iteration, if you will see, we added the log message. So here you can see in the logger, it's printing the same message, name Ajay Kumar, contact number. Second iteration, you can see the logger, we added name Sanjay Rawat and the contact. And the third iteration, we can see we have the log message, Virendra Sehwag and the contact number. So this is the basic integration we created while for reading the multiple file from server if we are not aware about the file. So if you have any other queries, you can make a comment on that. Thank you so much for watching.